Why is it we've got anxiety and depression, burnout, suicide, NFL, addictive behaviours, all these sort of things going on in the background when we should be absolutely rocking it? And I think the general understanding is because we've ignored this very, very important mental and physical recovery process, and we need to get on it pretty quick.
Welcome to the Train with Zan podcast,
where our goal is to help you look, feel, and perform like an athlete.
In each episode, we're interviewing experts in training, nutrition, and sports performance
who will help you separate fact from fiction in the fitness industry.
Now, here's your host, a former professional athlete,
certified personal trainer, and nutrition coach,
Zan Barksdale.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to episode number 2 of the Train with Zan podcast. My name is Zan Barksdale. I'm your host. Really excited about today's episode. The guest that I interview written a phenomenal book, super smart guy, and we have a great conversation where we talk about all the science and everything related to rest recovery, particularly around sleep, which will help athletes perform better, feel better, and just have healthier lives overall. A best-selling book that I read a few weeks ago. Made some big changes in my life and my sleep routines after I read it. I used to be a guy who would always take nighttime sleep aids, and once I read his book, I've immediately gotten off those. So I'm no longer having to take sleep aids at night, and my sleep quality has improved. So hopefully you'll take away some information today that helps you rest and recover better and learn how to become a better sleeper and really take control of that part of your life. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get right into the show. Thank you for being here. And again, I appreciate you listening to the Train with Zan podcast. As always, you can find today's show notes and links about the show on the website at trainwithzan.com/002.
Let's get this party started in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, everybody. I am really excited for today's guest. This is somebody who has been in the sleep industry for over 30 years, had a number of different roles, including a former chairman of the UK Sleep Council. And a lot of his work has actually led to a complete paradigm shift in the way that elite athletes view sleep and their approach to recovery. So he's worked with many, many different people. I couldn't possibly listen or list everyone, but includes the British cycling team, a long list of international soccer or football, as he would call it, teams, including Manchester United, NBA players, NFL players, as well as Olympic and Paralympic athletes. He's also given a TEDx talk, which is really good. You can find that online. He is immersed in the sleep world. He's even developed his own bedding system called the R90 Sleep Kit, which we'll talk about a little bit more recently in the show. And the way I found him was I found his book. He authored the book called Sleep, The Myth of 8 Hours, The Power of Naps, and the New Plan to Recharge Your Body and Mind. I got finished reading it about 2 weeks ago, and I've already had a number of takeaways that have helped improve my sleep. So I'd like to welcome to the show, Nick Littlehales.
Wow, Zan, was that me? You just described?
That's you. You've done a lot. You are the sleep expert, and you've got quite a long list of clients you've worked with, and I left a lot of things out, but definitely glad to have you on the show.
It's great. It's nice to be here, and let's hope we can have a good talk today.
Well, Nick, the first thing I want to do is, I would say there's probably not too many people in the world that have a title of a sports sleep coach. So if you wouldn't mind, kind of just walk us through your story and kind of how you developed a title and how you got to the role that you're in now.
Wow, I'll try and keep that short. It's just simply like you said. I fell into the sleep industry. I love sport as a teenager. That was my dream, really, but that didn't work out for me. It was a long time ago now, Zan, back in the late 70s, early 80s. And I fell into the sleep industry. I was working in that. I worked for a very big company as an international sales and marketing director eventually, and was traveling around the world doing all sorts of things, working for a leading brand, always trying to innovate and things like that, working with clinicians and things. And I suppose just one day, bit of a midlife crisis, sat in my UK Manchester-based office and just thought, I'm going to pack all this in and go and do something different. Because whilst I'd been in this industry, I just got a little bit bored with, we know how important it is. There was so many sort of myths and misunderstandings. There's no education. There's a lot of information that comes out from the clinical world that we just take no notice of because we can't impact it. And so we take it for granted, and it's not a performance criteria. So I'd done a lot of stuff, but just felt a little bit unrewarded. Just so happened there was a sporting organisation down the road from my office in Manchester called Manchester United Football Club. One or two things happened, and it just put me in a position where I was actually with these organisations at various events. And it just occurred to me, well, while I'm working out my 12-month contract before I can leave as a director of a company, I'll just write to them and see what they do about this. And back came a letter, because that's what we used to do in those days, Dan, write letters. And it says, we do nothing, but we're intrigued. What do you know? I think it was any other club on the planet, nobody would have answered my letter, because that was just ridiculous at that time in the mid-late 90s, where, somebody writing you say, do you do anything about sleep or recovery or this or whatever, would have just fell on deaf ears. No sports science, no data capture, no nothing. But it started dialogue. My company wasn't really interested. What's Nick doing? Well, he's leaving in 6 months. Well, what's he doing now? Well, he's going to see Manchester United. What's he doing that for? We don't care. I started dialogue with the physiotherapist who had a problem with one of the players, who was a centre half, sort of one of the defenders, had lots of lower back issues. They'd wrap him in cotton wool, would not really train, would only play. And because of my competence in sleeping products at that point in time, we just thought, well, let's have a look at what he's sleeping on at home, away from the physios, away from the training centre. And, classically, he does like everybody else, get something nice and orthopedically hard and da-da-da-da. So I made a few adjustments to that. And while we don't solve lower back problems, it meant that he didn't have to go and think about surgery. He was able to start training a little bit, and there was improvements. So that intrigued the physio. So then we started talking about other things. And some of those players would play for the national England squad. And so when they went to a World Cup in 1998, they started mentioning to the staff around the England squad that there was some guy who comes in and talks to us about things. And so the England squad got in touch with me. And we did something for the 98 World Cup. I still hadn't left my company yet, Zan. One of the physios who looked after the national England squad also looked after Arsenal Football Club, and became intrigued, got in touch, and then asked me to come in and to talk to the first team at Arsenal. They also had a new manager called Arsene Wenger, who was providing quite different training programs, the psychology, the attitude towards the sport, and was considered to be a little bit of a maverick, a little bit crazy, being French. And he was very interested. So there I got asked to talk to the first team of Arsenal Football Club. And I woke up one morning, and in the press, in the media, somebody had tipped off somebody along the route that there was a guy talking to Premiership footballers about sleep. And that intrigued them, not in a positive way, Zan. It's just, hang on a minute, Manchester United, Arsenal, have got a sleep coach, because all they took was coach, because that's in sport. Obviously, they'd heard the word sleep. So they've got a sleep coach. And what on earth is this guy doing? Is he tucking them in and reading them bedtime stories? I mean, what's he doing? We haven't got a clue. So literally, the title came, sorry for the long answer, is I just woke up one morning and the media had called me a sleep coach. So I just went, okay, if that's what I am, if that's the way it's perceived, then maybe I should make it up and make it work. So from that particular point, I'm developing what an elite sports sleep coach does ever since for 22 years.
Well, I'd say it's been working out quite well for you with the people you've worked with, the clientele, the results people have, and just the tips that are in your book that we'll talk about a little bit later. Very interesting. And you mentioned one thing earlier in your response that I kind of wanted to ask you about, and you talk about the education the education surrounding sleep. I know, just being in the sports world, it seems like a lot of people talk about recovery. They talk about you have to rest, you have to recover. But if you ever dive any deeper than that, okay, well, how do I do that? What all is involved? There's really not a whole lot of answers unless you find someone like yourself who's very well versed in it. Most people tell you, hey, get more sleep, get 8 hours of sleep. That's what you're supposed to do. But most people don't have much education around it at all. I know I've always been a bad sleeper myself. And when I read your book, there were literally 7 or 8 or maybe even 10 things that I took away that seemed like common sense in hindsight, that I've already started to put to use, and they're helping me with my sleep regimen and my recovery program. But it's just interesting how little education there is around the whole topic of sleep and recovery.
I think it was just always fascinating. It was always this, your room temperature should be 16 to 18 degrees. Well, in a clinical environment, maybe that's optimized, but whoever sleeps in that temperature? Humans all over the planet are in different climates, different time zones, north and south hemisphere. Wow. And like you say, it's like, how many hours do you try and get? And you say 8. And that's about as far as it goes. And you've described it beautifully. And that's what it was. So it's just, that cannot be all this is. That all we walk around with is to wake up in the morning, and when there's only so many hours left, we try and get our 8 hours. But we wake up to go to the toilet, we toss and turn. Thoughts come into our head. We wake up early, we wake in the middle of the night, and we're wide awake. So we're not actually sleeping for 8 hours. We're just allocating that amount of time because somebody said so. So as all the occupations have been changing since the late 90s when I got involved, it's just been paradigm shifts. Now we're in this 24/7, soon-to-be 5G world. And it's just, wow, we can't even think about just trying to do that 8 hours. So I was always fascinated to sort of, ask my professional colleagues in the clinical world. They were studying sleep. They were studying sleep disorders. They were providing information to us all as a population. But themselves, it was an occupation. That's all it was. They are sleep researchers. They are professors in sleep. But they had exactly the same approach to everyday sleep like I did and everybody else did. They didn't try and get 8 hours a night. They couldn't. They're flying around. They're doing this. They're doing that. They get home late. They do this. They go to parties and stuff like that. I said, well, why don't I read somewhere there's this polyphasic approach before the light bulb came along. When we slept in shorter periods more often, in biphasic, multiphasic. Surely that's a better way to do it in this modern world than that. Maybe so, Nick. So it's always been, if I couldn't find a logical answer to some of the things that I was able to see, and I was only looking at it because nobody else was, that's all. Everybody's looking at it now. But it was just, I was looking at it and going, well, if I want to get Manchester United through a season, there's no point thinking about 8 hours a night. Because look at the schedule. Look at them. It's just not going to work. So maybe we can do that. Maybe we can do this. And along the route of those 24 years, as things have kept changing, Zan, you just go, okay, let's look at this. Let's look at that. Let's look at this now. Oh, look, we've got social media. Oh, look, we've got games being played at 11 o'clock in the morning, 12:30, 3 o'clock, 5:45, 7:30. We've got Olympic athletes going to events where they're, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning because they're Olympic swimmers, but they're not actually doing their trials till 11, 12 o'clock at night because of media. in a different time zone, in a different hotel, with different products. Hang on a minute. So all I think it was is very early on, there's been a real concentration on the other two health pillars, nutrition and exercise. Done it to death, continue to do it to death, develop knowledge, develop research of what we should be eating, balanced diets, healthy balanced diets, this, that, and everything else. Veganism comes in now, quite big across the planet. You know, proteins, carbs, this, that, and the other, batch cooking, da-da-da-da. Exercise, whether it's this, that, how to get you strength and conditioning. But sleep is get to bed, get your 8 hours, have a good night's sleep, see you in the morning. It's so far away from the other areas that I think all we're trying to do along that route is sort of like, do you know what? It should be the first pillar. You should probably change the word sleep because of the impression it gives to everybody, because it's taken for granted, not a performance criteria. Maybe talk about it as mental, physical recovery periods, which changes the emphasis. Maybe we should be sleeping in cycles rather than thinking of these blocks of hours. Maybe that's the way to do it. And if we put that first, and our recovery is now given a redefined, approach, then maybe our mood and motivation, maybe everything we eat and drink, maybe everything we physically do will have a much greater impact on us than we actually think right now. Because we should actually be the healthiest, fittest, most knowledge human population that's ever been on this planet. Why is it you've just, first time ever, had a conversation with yourself about sleep? Why is it we've got anxiety and depression, burnout, suicide, NFL, addictive behaviors, all these sort of things going on in the background when we should be absolutely rocking it? And I think the general understanding is because we've ignored this very, very important mental and physical recovery process, and we need to get on it pretty quick.
I think that's extremely well said. I mean, you hit on a lot of different points there, talking about the polyphasic, how we used to sleep, and then, moving into, it's amazing that an adult who has been a professional athlete and still continues to work in that never even thinks about it. And like I said, I'm a victim myself. I've never put much more thought into it than I should have, but I'm a prime example.
The beauty of it, Zan, is what you mentioned before. Is like, it's not about my book or anything, but you're reading some content. It's not telling you what to do. It's not sort of like, you got to do this and you got to do that. It's sort of throwing you through a little sort of set of stories and a little process, and a little journey. And the big thing that's happened across the world, because it's in 14 languages now, which is kind of overwhelming, is that you're reading it and thinking, that actually makes sense. I think I actually do that. You've just reminded me of something that I think I've thought about before. So it's not like, oh my God, I've got to start doing this tomorrow. Oh my God, I've got to start tracking this data. Oh my God, I've got to start thinking about that. I've got to think actually, it's just like, that sounds like a much better way to wander through my day. And now I stop worrying about it. And if you're uneducated, if you've just got this 8 hours in your head, you don't know anything about anything else, the big thing about chronic insomnia, about sleeping, about not getting the full recovery benefits, about doing this, is suddenly if you can take somebody on a journey to take the worry away, there's only 8 hours left before I've got to do this again, and understand it's not a mental and physical activity like nutrition and exercise. You have to choose what to eat. You have to consume it. You have to choose what you're going to do exercise-wise and do it. Sleep, you present yourself to sleep, your brain takes over, and it'll give you what it can, what it could, or what it should. You're not in control. So stop thinking about sleep as a nocturnal period. Think about what you do from the point of wake throughout the hours of the day is going to equal, when you present yourself to recovery, your brain will give you the best it can. And that's the way to look at it. It's not a mental and physical activity. So you get sleep. The quality of your sleep comes from your attitude throughout your day.
I think for me, the biggest takeaway from your book that I got, and I want to get into your R90 sleep system and get some more of your thoughts on that. But I think for me, you talked about the anxiety of sleep. I mentioned earlier, I've never been a great sleeper. I rarely get 8 hours. I wake up in the middle of the night to go to the restroom.
Guy. You're a successful guy, Zan. You must have been doing something right.
Well, I'm doing some things wrong too, though. I can always improve, but I have a lot of anxiety around my sleep. If I wake up in the middle of the night, I start tossing and turning. Maybe I'm thinking about what's going on the next day. I think all I can think about is, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get 8 hours now. Now I've been awake for 30 minutes. Now I'm only going to get 6.5 hours, or maybe on this, that's going to screw up my day. And I would stress myself out.
God, you're making me feel anxious now.
That's what goes through my mind, though, and some key takeaways that I've learned, from your book have really helped. And again, I'll definitely link your book below so everybody can find it easily. But can you kind of walk us through your R90 sleep system? I know it's based around sleeping in 90-minute increments, and it's a lot more detailed than that. But can you kind of give us the basis of what your program is? And we've talked a lot about the misconceptions and what people shouldn't do. But what are some of the things you think people should start doing around their sleep and recovery?
Well, there's a sort of, I have a background of sales and marketing. So when you're starting to try and pull these things together over the 22 years of working with different clients and different sets of circumstances, it came together that there are 7, like the KPIs, there's some key sleep recovery indicators here. And we've got 7 days. If we look further beyond that, it's really worthless. We're not in control of every day. So 7 days a week, 24/7, there seems to be 7 key sleep recovery indicators about education, about awareness, about some of the myths, about some of the misunderstandings. And let's pull that together. The core of it, like you said, skews everybody having a little giggle if you know about, Premiership football. But in those early days, a game of football was 90 minutes long, Zan. And if I wanted to try and change the perception of this 8 hours inside that group with young athletes, players, I thought, well, let's shift it to, it's a 5-cycle routine. Let's shift this nap thing to, it's a CRP, it's another cycle. So I'm on a 5-cycle routine, 4 at night, 1 early evening. I've got my day chopped up into 90-minute cycles so I can see when I can go to sleep and keep some rhythm and harmony. I've got my chronotype, I've got this, I've got it balanced. So I've got a little dial that gives me these little timings. And I thought, hang on a minute. In the clinical environment, you'd wire up that individual, you're taking brainwave patterns off the frontal lobe, and you're looking at it on a polysomnograph, which is a bit like a sort of Excel spreadsheet with a lie detector needle there that's just picking up the different brainwave patterns, and we can see you wandering through those phases over a 90-minute period. And most of the professors I ever worked with or in conjunction with like 90 minutes rather than 60 or anything less. And then they'd benchmark that against the next 90 minutes. And you could see within the natural circadian rhythms that there is a little process that goes on that probably the deeper sleep stages, those REM and non-REM areas, were likely to, reveal themselves between 10 and 12 and 2. So there's a natural wake time between 2 and 3 in the morning because the sun is coming back. And that's when we'd like to enjoy it. And data trackers get this now. So it's kind of like 90 minutes is the length of a game, a football game, a Premiership football game. There's a break in the middle. We don't go for a full 90 minutes. We have a little break, maybe to have a little bit of fuel, hydrate, recover, re-mindset. Okay, let's go out and do it again. And so it kind of made a lot of sense. And that's why the technique was called R90, because it's just recovery in 90-minute cycles. That's where it came from. And the 7 KSRIs is simply tap circadian rhythms in your browser and get yourself educated, even if it's for a few minutes looking at some visuals. Identify with your chronotype, because it's genetic twist, and that can have an enormous effect on you as an individual, inside a group, inside your own family, as to how you can minimize and maximize your chronotype. Sleeping in cycles rather than hours and doing what I've just described just takes the pressure away in any 24 hours to how you approach that, and moves you away from this 8 hours just at night like you've been describing, which is very anxious. It's very concerning, because if you don't get your 8 hours done, if you only get 6, you've had it, right? Mm-hmm. So, well, I don't want to hear that, because I'm trying to get my 8 hours, but I'm waking up and going to the toilet, and I wake up at 2 o'clock and feel wide awake and then worry about it because everybody else is asleep. And all the research tells me if I get 7 hours sleep, not 8 hours sleep, my cognitive functions are going to go down by massive. Help me. You know what I mean? And it's sort of like, well, tell that to the pilot who's flying you to Australia or from east, west coast of America. Tell that to the nurse and the surgeon who's there. When you've got a problem and you ring the hospital, you want them there ready, don't you? They don't live in a different world. They've just been doing these logical things but didn't know how it was constructed. I think it just... So we go from psych, then we go pre and post. And I just go, forget the pre, it's the post. It's what you do. Your brain's in control of this. So when you wake up in the morning, you're going to feel crap. You're going to feel good. You've had lots of awakenings or you haven't. You've slept through sometimes. There's no perfect night's sleep. There's too many variables. So wake up in the morning, do a 180 on it. Leave it in the brick wall, as the US Marines would tell you, right? Leave it in the brick wall. Now then, I need blue light. 70,000 lux. I want serotonin piling into my brain to unsuppress me. I want to hydrate up. I want to open bowel and bladder. I want to do mental challenges. The first 90 minutes of my day is mine. It's nobody else's, because after that, little 90-minute break. Every 90 minutes, little break, little 1 or 2 minute distracted. The nap is nothing more than just me and Zan. We just walk down to the river. We look at the sky. We listen to the babbling water. And within seconds, because we're exposed to this wonderful light, and we're exposed to visualization that tells the brain's just taking in going, Zan, it's not that bad, is it? In seconds. That's a CRP. Doing this throughout the day. Bang, 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 bang. So that when I present myself to sleep, I've got it. And all it was is you then come to, how do you tell somebody to recover? You tell somebody to shut their tech down or to do nothing. Why would anybody want to do nothing? But you have to put it in the context of how valuable, in that sense, doing nothing. You're not doing nothing. You are protecting yourself from wasting valuable life space sleeping without benefits. You're protecting yourself from spending many hours every night with worry and anxiety and stress and no benefits. You're not getting those REM and non-REM stages because you're stuck in light sleep stages. You're not doing it. So these little moments are as powerful as 8 hours a night. Bang, off they go. And then you go environments. Number 6. And I coach professional mountaineers to sleep on the side of mountains in a sack on a clip. There's no special Casper mattress up there. There's no special anything up there. Serta Simmons, whatever. There's no this, there's no that. There's no aircon. There's no blackout blinds. There's no nothing. I coach people who travel, single-handed round-the-world sailors. They're on a stripped-out boat for 3 months racing. They'll only sleep in a multiphasic way for 26 minutes every 6 or 7 hours. Then they have to get back up on deck. You've got people who row across the Atlantic in boats rowing. They're not sleeping in fancy bedroom environments with all these sort of things, because the human being can sleep on anything, anywhere, anytime, any hemisphere, any time zone, on the floor, going camping, going mountaineering, on a train, on a plane, back of the car, on a sofa, on a chair, anywhere, because it's a perfectly natural situation. So you just go, environments are nothing more than light to dark, warm to cool, and what you've been doing throughout the day, and I can sleep anywhere. When it comes to products, which is number 7, always been fascinated by my Japanese athletes will just kick a piece of cotton out onto the lounge floor. And we've been fascinated by people who live in Finland and it's freezing cold. Always fascinated by Kenyan marathon runners, where it's like 40 degrees nearly all year long, and they're in a hut. And it's sort of like, wow, why do we get so fascinated by this wonderful mattress full of so many springs that we don't even know how many springs we need, full of all these materials that we don't even know whether we need them, all of these fascinating things that are going to last forever, and when actually you can sleep on something extremely simple as long as it meets a certain criteria. So those are the 7 areas. It's sort of, if you, in the world of British cycling, it's, you know, but it happens in all sorts of areas of sport around the world. As you mentioned, you know, I'll work with NHL and NFL and NBA and whatever, and it happens with NRL in Australia. It happens everywhere you go, at all sorts of levels, all sorts of demographics, all different types of levels. Is you suddenly sort of go, if you go, step 1, tap circadian rhythms in your browser and look at that image and get a relationship with your brain and bodily functions and the sun going around our planet that has never changed and will never change. Whatever you do, 5G, 6G, 7G, that ain't going to change. Second thing, your chronotype is genetic. Don't keep camouflaging it. Don't keep fighting it. Don't keep ignoring it. Use it to your benefit and win some gold medals. Be at your best more often. Reveal your personal best. Protect yourself from this world. Because if you get into an addictive behavior, if you start taking supplements, you start taking sleeping tablets, over-caffeinating, and all the other wonderful things, melatonin supplements, bang, 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 then you're going down a very slippery path that you will not enjoy your life like you think. And then you think cycles rather than hours. Amazing, you know. I don't get worried about my sleep at all, because I can sleep 3 cycles at night into a consistent wake time, 4 cycles, 5 cycles, 2 cycles, 1 cycle. I can CRP at midday, early evening. I get the little breaks all the time because it's just a subconscious thought. So I haven't got to worry about anything. When I wake up in the morning and I do my first 90 minutes, plenty of lights, bang, 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 bang. Whatever's coming my way just gets treated with confidence, reality, and puts it in context. Bang. I have a better balance to recovery because I know how important it is, because I'm taking the emphasis away from this ridiculous sort of 8 hours a night thing. But I'm actually getting more recovery than allocating 8 hours a night, because my whole 24-hour approach means I'm actually getting more mental and physical recovery than anybody who's trying to do 8 hours with all the things you described. And my environment, I know the things. I can sleep anywhere, any hotel, from a Hilton to a Marriott to a this, to a friend's sofa, a caravan, a Winnebago, on the floor, on a beach, in a tent. It doesn't matter, because as I know I've got an approach that is always working, that whatever I get faced with, it's easy because I'm working with it. And when it comes to products, I became aware of trainers. They weren't always around, John. You know, early days we called them pumps and things. And I became with trainers, and then suddenly Nike started sticking air in the bottom, which can support your full body weight, and the materials are so soft and supple. And I thought, well, I can wear these all day long. They're 24/7 footwear. I've got other shoes and this and that and other footwear. I can't do that. But these trainers are just amazing. Can do a 10K run, climb a mountain, wander around town looking fashion conscious. And you know what's supporting it? Air. Wow. Crazy. And I think the thing I sleep with, and all of my elite athletes around the world, is you think they might be sleeping on something that is so big and full of stuff and developed here and da-da-da-da-da and da-da-da-da-da and will do everything. It's not. It's just some simple layers that just release to the classic fetal position on the opposite side to your dominant side, classic human position of sleeping outdoors, protecting the genitals, protecting the heart rate, and they don't sleep with pillows because they just get in the way. And there's the 7 steps. And one little change: awareness, understanding, application, chopping your day up, getting a little bit more balance, not getting influenced by, oh God, I've got to go and buy this big mattress, da da da, all that sort of stuff. And suddenly you have this sort of, as some people would say, it's a paradigm shift to your day and your week, because a lot of these things have been taken away. The only point most people invest in sleep, and I'm sure you're aware of this, is not when they need to buy a mattress, not when they want to buy a mattress, is when they need to. It's probably the only point in the human life where they actually they make an investment in having to buy a bed or a mattress because there wasn't one already there. And when they do, they think it's the most important thing that's going to improve their sleep. And that has been the one thing. Remember, I was a sales and marketing director of a bed company. That has been the one thing that has always put a smile on my face of how gullible this population is. If they just tapped into these 7 steps, the mattress and bedding industry have got a serious problem.
Well, I really like the 7 steps you outlined, and I'm a perfect example again. Literally about 2 weeks before I started your book, I was about to go buy one of those, I think $7,000 or $8,000 mattresses that's supposed to be top of the line, and I'm holding off on that.
How much money do you make as a baseball coach?
Well, you can finance them. You can put them on 0%. So I thought it would be worth it because I understand how important it is, and I know how poorly I sleep, and I thought, man, I don't know what else to do. I feel like I've tried different things. It doesn't work. So I was willing to go buy one of those big expensive mattresses. And you've definitely changed my mind with your 7 step system. There are a couple things I really want to hit on that you talked about. I'd like to go into a little bit more detail with them. Number one is the CRP, which is you call it a controlled recovery period. Another word for a nap. I thought that was a great way to kind of change the mindset or change the shift in how you think about things, because it seems like a lot of people have, very negative connotations with somebody who takes a nap. That guy took a nap in the middle of the day. He must be lazy, or he's tired, doesn't have any energy. Where when you call it a controlled recovery period, it has a very positive connotation with it, and it sounds like a positive experience that's going to help you out and help you perform better and feel better, as opposed to a nap. So even just changing what you call it kind of shifts the way you think about it.
I think that's a great point. And we have FOMO, we like to KPIs. We sort of like to shorten these things down, and I've experienced those things in sales and marketing and in sport and everything else. And it's just, if I say to Dan, I'm going to talk to you about sleep, I can see straight away inside your head, you're thinking 8 hours a night, anxiety, crap, taken for granted, nobody knows anything else, I need to get my 8 hours, that's about where it stops. So if I mention sleep, you're already in a place. How do I get you out of that place? If I mention nap, it's exactly what you think. So I just thought, I've got to change their mindset. I'm not going to make things up, but I've got to use the knowledge I have and change the language. But change it for a reason. And so the CRP is just one of those things. It's mental and physical recovery periods. It's sleeping in cycles. It's 5 a day. It's 5 cycles a day equals 7.5 hours. It's a 30-minute cycle. You can use that twice, 3 times, 4 times, multi-phase it, depending on what's coming. A coach can look at it a week and go, right, there's our week in front of us. There's our players, our athletes. So right. They can do 4 cycles there, then they get up, they come in, they do that. We create a little space so they can CRP it. They wouldn't say nap it, right?
Absolutely.
Or kip it.
Absolutely.
They wouldn't say that. CRP it. Then we can CRP it there. Following day, we've got a game at this time. Then we're traveling west coast of America because we're in, the NHL and we're on coaches for 16 hours and all this sort of stuff. Like, right, bang, 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 bang. So all we need is we've looked at that week, and instead of them looking at it going, go to bed and get your 8 hours a night, get a good quality sleep and see you in the morning, they've now looked at the schedule with a different mindset. And they go, right, if that was us, 4 cycles, 2 CRPs, 3 cycles, 2 CRPs, 4 cycles, 1 CRP. Oh, right before the game, don't even make them sleep. Adrenaline's up, cortisol's off the roof, anxiety, will they ever play again? The crowd, the media, oh my God. Well, we're handing out sleeping tablets like mad because they're trying to force themselves to sleep because of game time, post and pre. Wow, take that away. Let's say don't do it. Use meditation, mindfulness, recover in a different way. Use other mental recovery tools. Don't try and sleep because you force yourself to do it. It won't happen. There we go. Then on Friday, bang. Saturday, bang, 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 bang. What does that 7 days look like? We got 35 cycles, 5 a day. 7.5 hours a day, plus all the other stuff. Brilliant. What did it look like? 28 90-minute cycles back to back with another 7 shorter CRPs. But we got our 35, which is what that eight's about. We were able to manage them through that process and deal with all the challenges. But we still, at the end game, got the level of mental and physical recovery we wanted. So, release the schedule. Now, when that first happened with a group of coaches, I just had to sit back and go, wow, what a change. And that's what it is sometimes if you've got no education, nobody's even focused on it, then suddenly you need to change what that means. And you need to give them different terms to change the way they do this. Because if you don't, then we're consistently going through this whole approach, So it's just a really lovely way to sort of get your 8 hours, but you think about it differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I love the way, and it's not changing it to be deceptive. It's changing it to be helpful. I know it was helpful for me, and I'm sure it's helpful for all the teams and the athletes you work with.
It's not really that new. I mean, it's like everything. It's all about. It was only because in a period of time, some time ago, that I was going to the library, I was asking questions, I was traveling around the world and doing things, and I was just, gathering information like we all can. And I gathered that information and tried to, fair enough. Let's try and make it relevant because I'm now a sleep coach. So what's a sleep coach do? Well, I need to do that, I need to do that. So these things are they sort of happen. When I've been working with lots of athletes and surgeons and GPs and sleep clinics and pupils and pilots, and they actually sort of look at it and go, all you've actually done is redefined what I actually do every day. But what I do every day is random. It's driven by others, but I'm still going to do it. But now I've got a defined approach to how to make sure I can go through it. Brilliant. So it is as ridiculously unlogical and simple as that.
Well, it works though. At the end of the day, it works, and that's what's helping so many people. Which is, I know, helped me, and like I said, It's very beneficial and interesting as well. One thing you've mentioned a few times that I understand because I read your book, you mentioned the word chronotypes, but I want to make sure everybody who's listening understands what that means. You refer to it as basically an AMer or a PMer based on your body type. Could you kind of go into a little bit more detail with that and kind of help people figure out, what their chronotype might be?
Do you know what yours is now, Sam?
I'm an AMer.
Right, okay. So I'd always heard these terms called owls and larks, because I'm nearly 60 years of age now. I've got a brain of a 21-year-old, but I'm 60 years of age. And I'd heard this term. And so along the route, you sort of investigate that. Because I related with being a lark. I'm like wired and ready to go in the morning. What's that all about? You meet people on the route who you can't get them out of bed. And I became fascinated by that. So you're an AMer. I'm a PMer. This is a little genetic twist. And just to take everybody back, I'm sorry, but the brain and bodily functions and the circadian rhythms of our day, the sun going around our planet, has never changed. So we can go back as if, let's say Zan is a PMer. Now, Nick and Zan spend all our time outside. So we are triggered by the sun coming up, the blue light, the serotonin, unsuppressing activity. It then starts to diminish from 12 o'clock onwards, and then it moves towards sunset. So we have a natural balance of 12 hours in light, 4 hours in diminished light around the fire, and 8 hours in darkness. That's the 24-hour circadian rhythm of exposure to light and dark. So Zan and Nick are outside. The sun sets and goes away. But from 12 o'clock onwards, it's coming back. And this is what this understanding is like. Nighttime sleeping, the sun isn't going away, it's coming back. 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock, it's coming back. So the light starts to change. Now, I'm an AMer, so my little pineal gland in my brain, through the light receptors, through my eyes, whether my eyes are closed or not, is suddenly I start to produce serotonin like mad. And serotonin is the hormone that tells the brain to unsuppress everything and be active. So as soon as that starts happening, I've got to get up. I'm awake. I'm alert. I'm hungry. I'm starving. Bowel and bladder. Whoa, whoa, whoa. But Zan is a PMer. Now, that little genetic twist means your pineal gland, we haven't quite worked it out what this thing is yet, but it'll come tomorrow, Zan, is you're about 1 to 2 hours behind me. So that sunrise process, that shift of the sun coming back, is not producing the serotonin as quickly as mine. So you're not being activated. So I become active, then you become active maybe 1 or 2 hours later. That's when your appetite comes in. That's when your serotonin levels have risen to a level when you can be active. I will take you through the day because I'm fully functioning, brain's fully lit up, blue light, big time, 70,000 lux out there, I'm rocking. We stop, fuel up, and have a little snooze. Then Zan kicks me, and off we go. Now we take advantage of the second half of the day. You're leading this because I'm now starting to produce melatonin. And melatonin is because the diminished light, I start now to produce that, which is telling my brain to suppress and shut down. You are 2 hours behind this process. So you rock the rest of the daylight. Then it goes dark. You put the fire on. You cook the food. Melatonin's building up in me quick, not like you. I fall asleep. You fall asleep 1 or 2 hours later. The sun comes up in the morning. The same thing happens. So the chronotype, as you know, there's a lot of research, and in all my experience, there's about 60 to 70% of the population are PMers, nighttime chronotypes. So the AMers are in the minority. But for a long, 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 long time, we live in a world dominated by AMers. So the PM chronotypes have really been struggling because we ask them to get up maybe 1 or 2 cycles prior to their natural wake. We demand them to be like AMers, like going to school and doing exams and going to work and taking the kids to school, all this sort of stuff. And we just completely ignore the fact that that PMer possibly is far more productive at different times of the day when we force them to be all in the same boat. And it really opens itself up in sport and in any organization, and particularly with your own partner in life and your children. Is don't make your children do the homework at the same time. Spot their chronotypes. Why is one still in bed and you can't get them up, and the other one's downstairs dressed in their uniform, ready to go eating breakfast? Why is it when you go to your company and there's AMers in charge of it, and yet the majority of the staff are PMers? That's failing. That's productivity. That's not being efficient. That's spending hundreds of thousands of dollars every year trying to have well-being programs and everything else, and you just haven't done one little thing to realize that you're a morning company, but 70% of your workforce are PMers. In a team, where it's NFL, NBA, and you're just looking at, we want the marginal gains. It's that basket right at the end. It's that 96 minutes. It's that session. It's that timeout period. It's all of those little things when things change. So if you don't realize that you play most of your games at night and most of your staff are all AMers, it may be a marginal gain because you're all up for it with adrenaline and everything else, but why does some teams seem to do that? And all it is they're revealing these things as an individual, as a group, that if my best friend, Zan, is an AMer, I've spotted it, right? He spotted it, then we can go to the gym, we can do exercise, we can do this, we can go to the cinema, we can do this, we can do that, because we're in harmony. But if my best friend is a PMer, we're always going to be at conflict. Because we try to do things together. We try to do things, go to the gym after work, do this, go to whatever, but there's always a conflict. And I can ignore it. I can over-caffeinate it. I can take stimulants, tablets, drugs. I can worry about it and be anxious in the background for year after year after year. And then suddenly, I find myself in a place where I can't get out of bed. Or I'm in a place, my career's ended, or this has ended, or my relationship's ended, or my relationship with myself has ended. And that's the problem with this thing that I've always seen, is to, before it's too late, reveal yourself, because it gradually catches up on you, slowly but surely. It's not significant. It's just month by month, season by season, year by year, slowly but surely, you become a shadow of who you should be. And if you don't sort of address it at some point, then you'll end up in what I said before, is why we should be the healthiest, fittest, knowledge human population on this planet, and yet underpinning it is some serious well-being issues. And all that is we're moving into an era where sleeping 8 hours at night in a monophasic block just doesn't wash. Change it.
Yeah, you're right. And I think back to the days when I was coaching in college and we'd have early morning workouts, and there are some people who they're just not there, mentally. They're not there. They're there physically, but their minds aren't in it. You can tell they're a PM, or you can tell they're not, very productive in the mornings.
That's probably a better answer than me. You can spot it, can't you? And we used to wander around training camps and just go, oh, look at him. He's trying to put his boots on. And he's been lacing those boots up for 3 minutes when all the other guys are out on the field. And you can just see it in somebody, can't you? Oh, look, they live 30 minutes away from their workplace, and at 27 minutes past 8, they're still hitting the snooze button. They then force themselves out of bed, jump into something, get themselves somewhere and go, hello, I'm here, but no, you're not. And it's sort of like, I think anybody listening said, well, that's fine, Nick, fine. But some of the leading organizations, all I did with this was to get them to change the way they communicate. You can't, you've got to start work at a certain point. The world is what it is. So just because you're a PMer, we can't change the world. We can't cancel daylight saving time. We should never have it. But the economic impact's too much. Okay, well, let's try and work with it, not have it so impactful on us. And he just went, right, you've got a strategy meeting. It's get all the players in. We've got to talk about tactics. We've got about this. 9 o'clock. Bang. Yeah. We know that 70% of the room are PMers. Yeah. So you put up on the PowerPoint display, we're going to beat the Houston Texans by the NFL Jaguars, whatever. This is what they do. There's the quarterback, That's what it is. And you go 2 + 2 = 4. Now, all the AMers, like me and you, we got it. 2 + 2 = 4. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. I got it. It was up on the screen. So we just got the coaches to send a text message to all the other PMers that just came up on their phone. 2 + 2 = 4. That's the takeaway from this morning's meeting. Because the PMers walked out of that room, not like me and you, Zan. We've got 2 + 2 = 4. Let's go and do it. The others going, did he say 2 - 2 = 4? And was it? What did he mean by 2 plus minus? Was it 2 equal? I'm not quite sure. But then you just send them a little text, and now they've got it because you sent it to them at the right time of day when they would get it. And it's all these, it may not be a great point to make them, but it was, look, along the process, it was just going, can you see the difference just because you now understand that? Yeah. And personal trainers and coaches like yourself, this is like, come in. We've got to do intensive workouts. You're an elite athlete. You're a baseball player. You're a young athlete trying to get, baseball player, trying to get into the big leagues, minor leagues, whatever. Get in here at 4 o'clock in the morning. Let's bust it. Because then you're going to go to school. And then you're going to do that. And we'll come back in the evening and bust it. And you go, Zan, why are you trying to drive that PMer into the ground by asking them to be with you at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, doing intensive workouts or whatever it might be, when you'd be much better? They've still got to get up. They're an elite athlete. But if you understand their chronotype, you'll have put light into their life, you'll do it in an environment that's right, you'll do other things in that time, but then you'll do the other things later on in the day. And now you've got an athlete that's going to perform, or they're going to burn out. It's entirely up to you. I think that's why I like that very simple thing, because, me doing a podcast, Zan, with you in the UK at nearly 5 o'clock at night, UK GM time, is not the best time for me to be doing a podcast.
Well, we appreciate you being on it. I appreciate you making time for me. But it's 11. It was 11 in the morning here when we started, so it worked out for me, not so much for you.
Yeah, but if I know that polyphasic approach, up early in the morning, CRP, a little bit of break, light and dark, use little techniques, then you can counter this. But if you don't, then there's always a danger that you might talk too much and waffle and waste time, not make your point, you're not clarity, maybe you're not doing the best job you ever can. So I think I'm doing a really good podcast with you, but I might be doing it not as well as I should.
I think you're doing great. I think you're doing great. We're getting a lot out of this. Yeah. So
just use that as an example. That's how we camouflage stuff. We just think, that was that was amazing. That was amazing, man. Yeah. But what happens if you just changed your approach for a few months? Now listen to that podcast. Oh yeah, okay. I said that 14 times. I also interrupted him 14 times. I also said this 14 times. Wow. Podcast 3 months ago, podcast today with a redefined approach to recovery. What a difference. What a difference.
Yeah, I think like I said, I just think it's really interesting, your perspective on all this stuff. You've given a number of, really practical tips, whether it be in, figuring out your chronotype and talking about, pre-sleep and post-sleep routines, even the sleeping position, which we talked about very briefly, talking about sleeping on your side and the fetal position on your non-dominant side. All of these are topics that are in the book, and I just want to plug your book one more time for everybody who's listening along. The book is titled Sleep. I got mine on Amazon. You just type in sleep or Nick Littlehales. It'll show right up. It's very entertaining. There's a lot of practical tips that you can put to use right away. Like I said, I've got literally probably 6 or 8 tips that I've started using immediately. So I definitely recommend anyone check that out. Aside from writing your book, you've also got your website, sportsleepcoach.com, where you do consulting work. Or I guess you'll speak to groups, or people can hire you for a sleep consultation. So I know you have that. And then I know we're running short on time, but you also have your R90 sleep kit, which I thought was really interesting because you talk about how a lot of the Olympic athletes you work with, they take their sleep kit with them wherever they go, or even the cyclists, so where they can sleep on the same surface. But before we get off here, will you mind talking about your R90 sleep kit, maybe how you developed it and what it does and how somebody can benefit from it?
Well, I think it's that 7th KSRI. We looked at environments, we looked at products, and like you're about to spend $7,000 or $8,000 on something in your home, but no athlete or any high achiever in the modern world walks out of their front door onto a playing field. They travel, they sleep in different places, different environments, and all sorts. So it was kind of like, okay, so we come into your home. We've got your physical profile. Everybody's ecto, meso, or endomorphs. That's the medical profile for human beings. And you just look at that individual and say, right, never mind the style of your bedroom, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But we literally just want to build something in layers underneath you that puts you in that fetal position. So we use layers. We love layers in sports. Everybody does. And we use layers because we can replace them more often. It's not such a bigger investment, but we can, when we've got injuries and challenges physically, we can adapt. Whereas if you buy one big chunky mattress, it ain't going to work. And when you move somewhere else, it doesn't work. So it's sort of, what we did is just build a set of layers inside the bed. Whatever size you want, whatever room it'll take for you, fetal position, opposite side, dominant side. We would then look at the linen. We want to be able to wash it, clean it, fast dry, quick dry, antibacterial, hypoallergenic. We don't want anything getting in the way. And we want to replace it every night and change that momentum. We don't want any pillows, so it's like, and then all we did is just go, right, if we take that in a single size, put it in a kit bag, then we take that to Rio, to Chicago, to the Hilton Hotel. Because those rooms were not designed for me, not designed for Usain Bolt, not designed for these elite athletes around the world. It's just designed, it's a domestic room. So we would go into that room. We've just rented it. We've rented a recovery space. And we would go, right, in we're bringing familiarization, smells, filters, blackout, all the little things that trigger off familiarization, because we know recovery is diminished big time when you move out of a familiar set of circumstances. So we started doing that and saw some massive increases. It's not for everybody, but, traveling around with your own sleep kits. But these things have developed big time from when we first did it. And now you've got air and you've got self-inflating. You've got using the air in Tokyo as well as here. You've got this, you've got that. You're developing materials, so it's all much simpler. And now we've got so many more people just going, I booked a room, I'm going in there, and I'm using little techniques to familiarize this environment. I'm using my little sleep kit. It's about layers, it's about this, it's about that, it's about smells, it's about nose breathing things, it's about little things. Because while I'm there in that environment, my only goal is to smash that meeting, get the order, is to make great decisions that might affect the rest of the world, or win a gold medal. So while I'm in that environment, I want my stuff around me, the stuff that I know promotes the mental and physical recovery I want, knowing that I'm going to have so much pressure around me that if I don't get that right, I got no chance. So I do not want to be sleeping on a mattress or a bed or a bedroom, an environment that was designed for every single person who ever came into that room. This is my space for me to go and do that tomorrow. And I think when you start changing your mindset, hotels are really cracking onto this now, because as I wander around the world with lots of organizations and walk into hotels and go, we're not having that hotel because we can't impact on it. We'll have this hotel. It might be 3 or 4 kilometers up the road, not maybe an ideal location, but we can impact on it better. We can improve their recovery, so we'll smash it. So we do all of these little things now, and the hotels are really starting to think smart hotels, the ways to, you can impact on that room, you can maximize your recovery. And I think, it's called a little sleep kit only because I didn't want to call it a bed. It's about, in your home, you've got a sleep kit. It's about environment. It's about temperature. It's about noise. It's about familiarization. It's about sensory. It's about curling up and no pillow. It's just banging it out. It's just like going into that room and just doing it. And everything else, bang, get on with it. Do 4 cycles. Come away. Grab. Bang, 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 bang. And when you do all of that, you say, well, why wouldn't you take some of those things with you to Tokyo? Why wouldn't you? Are you an elite athlete or not? But it applies to absolutely everybody. If I work really hard all year long and I get my 2-week break, my holiday, and I'm going to go somewhere nice because I've earned it, maybe sit on a beach, maybe do something extreme, maybe whatever it is, then why wouldn't I want to be recovering in the best possible way during the 2 weeks that I have spent all my year working hard for it? Why would I want to go and sleep in somebody else's space when I want to recover? I want to really, and that's why I always refer back to this camping thing. It's not a hotel. It's my tent. It's my bit of foam. It's my sleeping bag. It's where I pitched it. It's in the circadian rhythms of the world. There's all the visualization every day of wandering around, looking at this stuff, away from technology, being a human. Wow, that's what a sleep kit is. That's all a sleep kit is just replicate what actually makes us tick.
I just think it's amazing that, I've never heard of anybody doing that before now. Because it makes perfect sense. Like I mentioned before, there were so many topics in your book that we've discussed a lot of them today, but they just make perfect sense. But I think most people don't ever put the thought into it, or have never put the thought into it, about what actually goes on while they're sleeping and how to create a proper environment and rituals and everything so that they can be fully rested.
I think you'd be really fascinated by, people are, because they sort of think, what do you sleep on, Nick? And they look in my bedroom. Really? Yeah. And it's sort of like, well, I'm making this up now, Zan, but, Usain Bolt, fastest guy on the planet, there's been all sorts of people who've done these sort of things. And they didn't sleep in the hotel. What do you mean? It's a 5-star hotel. Fantastic bed, beautiful linen, gypsum cotton. Oh, it's amazing. En suite. Yeah. Essential oils. No, they chose to sleep in a tent outside the hotel. Why? Because they could replicate what they've been doing all the time. The familiarization stuff and everything else. They could replicate exactly what they want. And they went and beat the 100. They beat another world record. And they didn't sleep in the hotel. No. Because they had no control over it. They won't control over it. And it's like a sort of professional cyclist, an NFL player. It's like going to an event and somebody says, wear those boots. Whose are they? I don't know. What size are they? I don't know. But you're expecting me to be a quarterback, in a big game, and you're just making me wear these? No chance. That's really what a sleep kit is. It's your little bits of stuff that just goes, that's what I need prior to that, not what the Marriott or the Hilton or whatever it is providing for me. It's just a far simpler approach.
Well, I really like the analogy you used about the boot, and you talked about it in your book too. Is the mattress, the salesperson, the mattress store, they're going to tell you how many springs it has and things like that. They're not going to look at your body type and really see what fits best for you. That's the responsibility of whoever is buying the mattress or buying their sleep kit. So a lot of really good takeaways. Nick, man, we've been over a lot of information today, and I really appreciate you spending all the time. Yeah, a lot of fun.
Enjoyed it.
Great conversation. I definitely appreciate having you on. Like I said, I can tell you firsthand, I appreciate what you're doing, just because of the takeaways that I've already taken away from your book and this conversation, and hopefully some people who are listening to this will do the same as well. Again, one last time, I'd urge everybody to buy the book. I looked on Amazon earlier today, under $10, I think. So there's no reason anybody shouldn't buy it. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. We can find you again at sportsleepcoach.com. You're also online on Instagram and on Twitter. You've got a number of videos and presentations or other podcasts on YouTube as well. Is there any other place where someone can contact you, or how would they get in contact you if they wanted to reach out?
I pointed out before when we were writing letters to each other, I coach people virtually all over the world. We've got video, we've got Skype, we've got Zoom, we've got all sorts of stuff. So things have really changed. So anybody listening to this who've never reached out, as they won't, they reach out to personal trainers, GPs, all sorts of different ways to improve their life. But it's not natural to reach out to a sleep coach. It just isn't. You've only done it in a few weeks recently. And it just encourages them. It's not we're not making this up. It's not, pseudoscience. That anybody interested in what they've learned today, they can actually just get connected. We have very simple services. We're not premium, we're not elite athletes ourselves, because we deal with all sorts of aspects of life. So you don't have to think that you're, engaging with, this is just a simple natural process. You could be about to become parents. You could be shift workers, Amazon workers, whatever you are, it doesn't matter. But I think over all the years, Dan, and people listening to this podcast, I know what they'd like to read more than anything else is your 10 takeaways from reading that book. It's just a book, fine, promote it. You've mentioned it so many times. I am really appreciative. But really, the thing that I'm interested in is educating a population to change the way they do things, to reveal themselves. And I think I would like to actually see your 10 takeaways. What's really changed your approach, or are you just making it up? So I would leave everybody with that one, is to just ask you, what have you learned over the last few weeks? What are you actually doing in practical, achievable ways that actually is affecting your life in an honest and truthful manner?
Great question, and I'm glad you asked it. And like I said, we could.
They don't need to come on my website and read all my stuff. They actually just want to go, Zan said he did this. First time ever. Bang, bang, bang. Good takeaways. 7, 8, 9, 10. What were they?
Yeah.
You, that would influence me tomorrow rather than me talking to them. I tell you.
Well, I'd be glad to go ahead and share a couple right now. Like I said, I know we don't have much time left, but I'd be glad to share a couple. Number one, in your book, you referenced using a nasal dilator. I had never heard of that before. It's a small device you place in your nose to open up the airways. I know since I started using them, my wife told me I've snored less. I know I can breathe better. I feel very comfortable using those. I use the ones you recommended. I think they're called Mute by Rhino Med, maybe.
Yeah.
I think $15. Very, very inexpensive.
Nose breathing is amazing. It's an amazing thing. Mouth breathers and stuff like that. It's an amazing recovery tool. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Another one I used to, when I would take I used to call it a nap. Now I call it a CRP. I used to take it in my bed. Now I've moved to a different room of the house, which is kind of dedicated to my recovery room. I don't necessarily have all the blackout blinds, and I haven't gotten it completely set up like I'd like to yet. But I don't take my naps in the place where I sleep at night, trying to create trying to get the circadian rhythm, I guess, on track and going in the right direction that way. That would be another one. As far as the blue light, you talk a lot about the light from the sun, the campfire. I've made a conscious effort to have less screen time at night in the 90 minutes before my bed. So my pre-sleep routines have changed, where I try to be on my phone less, on my iPad less TV. That's the time that I like to read. And that's impacted my sleep ritual. Another thing you talked about is the sleep positioning. I used to sleep on my back. Now I sleep on my side. There are a number of things that I've taken away. Those are the first ones that come to mind immediately. But there are a lot of really good tips in there, and I'll put them in the show notes below this on the website so people can find them. But again, I know I've said it before, but I promise you I'm trying to recommend it to people because I think it's valuable, and I think it will help them improve the quality of their rest and recovery. Pick up the book, check it out. Take my word for it, but really read on your own and learn what works for you.
Well, I'll give you one little thing everybody can do, including yourself, is if you go into the App Store, you can find a free light meter called Lux Light Meter, or variation of. It has to be free because you don't want to pay for it. And it puts a little dial on your device, and all it's doing is measuring the strength of light. And the strength of light is measured by lux, lumens. And so all this business about shut your tech down and light, and as you just described perfectly, is very, very quickly, using today's technology, you can have a little app on your phone, on your smart device, that just shows you the strength of light around you. So when you wake up in the morning, when you're wandering around the bathroom, this, cooking, da-da-da, in your office, da-da-da, and then you step outside. And to give everybody an example, they will suddenly realize that they spend so much time in what's called diminished light. 100, 200, 300 lux. And that's the bright lights from the gym, that's the bright lights from the offices, that's the bright lights from your home environment, everything else. And you just step outside, and that number will ratchet itself up to 60, 74,000 lux. And your relationship with this light is, maybe you can't be outside all the time. Maybe you are inside under bright lights, but those bright lights, your technology, your smart devices, shut them down, everything else, it's all about information overload. It's not about the light. It's about, what are you watching? What are you visualizing? You're not sat by the river looking at that, da-da-da. And once you get that, there's so many people just using technology to walk around and going, oh my God, for the last 7 days, the highest exposure has been 500 lux. And yet outside, with that beautiful thing that will never change, it was 74,000, 60,000, 50,000, 20,000. a murky day, a cold day, whether you're under the bright lights of a football stadium, whatever it is, and you just think, wow. And when you tap circadian rhythms in your browser and you see these images of a brain that's lit up and a clock, suddenly you have a relationship with, I am not lit up. I think this is my personal best. But if I could only replicate what was outside, inside, if I could be outside more often, just change my direction, turn left instead of right, and just expose myself to 70,000 lux. It's a bit like plugging your phone into the wall to charge it up so that you can still connect with the world, but it's only charging it at half the rate. Plug it in another socket, and it's bang in 5 minutes, and you're back on the game. And it's like, wow. So if anybody listening to this, and I love your little points, we didn't mention nose breathing because it's major, 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 on your relationship with your CRPs and your recovery room and everything else, and that's brilliant. And the next bit for you is like, go and use that beautiful stuff, whether it's outside or inside, and just get a connection with what actually light means. You know, it's a really powerful human performance tool, and we shouldn't be talking about shut it down. We should actually be thinking about using it really positively beyond everything else that's in our world.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I am going to download the Lux Light Meter, and what you just mentioned, spending more time outside, that's one of the tips that I've actually tried to put in place as well. Where in the morning when I get up and have my coffee, I usually sit in the kitchen. Now I try to sit on my porch just to expose myself to more light, to help myself wake up and kind of help my my post-sleep routine get going a little bit faster.
I know, but when you wander around the planet with all sorts of different athletes, it's like, from California to Finland, it's like, well, we can't do that. We can't sit on our porch and get daylight. Yeah. But as long as you understand this, then you can put lights in your house, little lamps strategically placed. You can have things like the human charger, which is just like a nano iPod, just putting that blue light through your ear canal. Don't just give up. If you can't be outside, if that's not what your lifestyle is all about, fine, but don't disregard the fact this is a circadian process. So if you can't sit on your porch and get it, make sure it's inside your world, because you don't want to be living in 300 lux.
Yeah, and I think the key is, you don't have to be perfect all the time, but like you said, just try to be a little better. Just make a few better decisions. Be outside a little bit more. You talk about alarm clocks that have daylight that'll wake you up. They start daylight, I guess, 30 minutes before your alarm goes off, and I haven't bought one yet, but I do plan on doing that. But just try to make better decisions. I think these are all practical tips that anybody can put to use really easily, really cost efficiently. Like you said, I know you saved me about $8,000 on a mattress. So that was a very good trade-off. I definitely appreciate that. But Nick, wow, again, a lot of really good tips today. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for hopping on this call with us and sharing your information and your passion for sleep and recovery. And you've got a lot of very interesting stories about the athletes you've worked with. So I just want to say thanks again for coming on. I appreciate having you, and thanks for sharing all your information.
It's been great. Thanks very much, Sam.
Thanks for listening to the Train with Zan podcast,
where our goal is to help you look, feel, and perform like an athlete.
Be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening and follow Zan on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
The training doesn't have to stop here. For today's show notes and more information about training, nutrition, and fitness,
head on over to trainwithzan.com and join the team.